Hey, it's another incredible sunny August day in Moscow, still sunny. And today we'll continue breaking stereotypes about Moscow, Russia and everything. And today an incredible, amazing girl from America will help me with that. Hey!
Hi!
So you came with a drink.
I did. Can I offer you something?
Thank you. I hope it's vodka, with a little bit of vodka.
And a little bit of vodka on the side as well.
So here we are. This is Gabby from America.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit of the place and why we're here?
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite places in Moscow, La Boule. Forgive my horrible French pronunciation. If it's not Russian, I have no chance at it. And yeah, I mean, Gorky Park is the place to be on a Sunday afternoon here in Moscow. It's always so active and exciting and beautiful. And this is one of my favorite little spots to hang out. Get a drink, watch some people play lawn bowling.
For an American girl from Rochester to go to study, the most obvious place to choose is Russia. Really? Like,
Probably
why?
not. Well, I started studying Russia and Russian when I was a freshman in college, actually, in university.
Yeah.
And I had taken this contemporary Russian politics class, really focusing, I guess, on the past 25 years after the fall of the Soviet Union. And it was just so fascinating at the pace at which everything moved so quickly in Russia. So I began studying the Russian language, and I had always loved Russian music, so I had two specialties, two majors, music and Russian studies. And so when I was still in university, I studied in St. Petersburg, and then I studied in Ufa, so getting a little bit farther out of the center, so to speak. And then in between my undergraduate degree and my PhD program, where I'm currently studying, I spent a year in Chelyabinsk. Yeah. Chugoная Florencia Resi, right? Yeah.
Wow, that's the most poetic way to say it. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Do they know it there?
I don't know, but I wanted to catch on. Yeah, the cast iron Florence of Russia.
How was your parents and friends? And they're like, where? Russia? Chelyabinsk?
Oh man, I think they were all pretty surprised. Yeah, it's not common, certainly. And to study Russian language, I think, you know, people are kind of like, why? The Cold War is over. Why do you need to study Russian? And you know, I come from, so I say I'm from Rochester, but I'm actually from a very small town not too far from Rochester, where our history textbooks were printed in like 1990, and so people they didn't change, yeah. So people were like, well, do you have to be a communist to go to Russia?
Yeah.
It's like, no.
Right. Gone in case that.
Right, are there bears on the streets?
Yeah. So were there some situations in your everyday life in Russia when the fact that you're American influenced somehow on the conversation?
You know, I don't necessarily want to use that, right? I'm trying to live as close to what a Russian might live like in Moscow, which is honestly not all that different from what somebody might live like in New York City. I mean, certainly, you know, I've almost never run into any animosity for being an American. You know, nobody's ever said, you're American, get away from me. Like,
Don't drink our moonshine.
Yeah, no summer gone for you. And when it does come up, people have overwhelmingly been, you know, really supportive. Sometimes they'll say like, why are you here? Not like go home, but just like, it's not even a почему, it's a zачем, like, like why?
Yeah. What about this smiling tradition in those two countries?
They were very clear to us when we first got to Russia, this program, that you don't smile at everybody you pass on the street. Because if you're from America, especially if you're from a small city or a small town, if you walk by somebody on the street and you make eye contact, you smile. And they told us, they were like, in Russia, if you smile at a stranger, it means one of two things. Either you're flirting with that stranger, or there's something wrong with you. And so they taught us what they called the metro face, which they said was sort of half sleepy, half angry, where you just sort of have to go.
Life is pain face. We call it the face. So as you started talking about flirting, that's a very important question that we need to talk about.
Oh boy.
Yes, oh boy. Boys. Exactly. Boys.
Can we get another drink before we
2, 3 drinks. So how do you, I mean, if you had this experience or if your friends had this experience, how would you find American boys and Russian boys? And what's the difference? And what's the difference in terms of relationships?
Oh man, how do I put this?
The way it is, the Russian way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are some differences. I think, you know, as an American who was raised in a pretty liberal, progressive household, where, you know, my mother was the breadwinner, right? She was the professional in the family. Coming to Russia, it does seem like gender roles are a bit more fixed. And I know that a younger generation of Russians are starting to try to break free of that a little bit. But certainly, you know, in my experience, things like, you know, the man should be the primary breadwinner for the household, and the woman has this sort of double burden of, yes, the women work here, because we can look through Soviet history, for example, and look at how gender relations were actually much more equal in the Soviet Union than they were in America, absolutely. But the woman then also has to come and take care of the children and take care of the household.
That's the tricky thing about the Russian women. I think that's one of the things why men all over like Russian women, because Russian women, they're like, they do everything.
Yes.
They take care of children, they go to work, like sometimes several works.
They wear 5-inch stilettos always.
They go to the gym, so they have to look like they are like doing nothing every day.
Right. As a rule, if we were to generalize, right, the man works, but then he's able to come home and relax and sort of things like that. Whereas, you know, in America, when I'm looking for a partner, be it a boyfriend or whatever, you know, I'm looking for a guy who will split household chores with me. Both of us have professional careers, right? You know, just the expectation. I'm 26, which is an old maid basically in Russia to not be married, right?
Oh, I'm 30.
Yeah. But, you know, my Babushka in St. Petersburg, when I was 20, she said, "Are you married?" I said, "What, 20?
Really?
Absolutely not." She goes, "Oh, well, you still have 2 years." What? What?
I'm done.
Yeah. So, you know, I think there are differences that way.
So what about, like, I don't know, like you meet a guy that you like in a bar and you start
In
chatting.
Russia?
So in both America and Russia, what would be the scenario in America and in Russia? Is there something like different at that very stage when you just start flirting?
When you just start flirting.
Relationships and something.
I think, you know, as a rule, American men seem to be a bit more extroverted. They come up to you more in a bar and might say like, "Hey, how's it going? Can I buy you a drink?" Also, if you say no, hopefully they say, "Okay, thanks," and then leave you alone.
Russia, they never leave you.
No. In Russia, actually, you know, I have a few friends who have worn fake engagement rings in Russia.
Really?
Because they say, you know, if you tell a guy no, that's not enough. But if you say, "Look, I'm engaged," or "Look, I'm married," maybe then they'll leave you alone.
The girls, what about the boys? No, the boys, I think they throw them.
Oh, yeah. They are married and they take their ring off.
I've heard some, I'll be a spoiler, I've heard some stories about the World Cup, of how men during the World Cup, like foreigners who came to Russia and they lost their rings.
Yeah.
And they're like,
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, American men who are looking for relationships with women tend to do much better in Russia than American women who are looking for relationships with men do. And I think it speaks to some of those gender norms.
Talking about free time and things you do with your friends when you're not studying, not working. Where would you go in America? Where would you go here? And is there a certain difference, or is like the same everywhere? How do you feel about it?
Oh, that's a good question. I think some things are very similar. You know, in America with free time, I'll go to a bar or to a cafe or to dinner or something with friends. You know, we might go somewhere outdoors, like to the beach or whatever. And I think the same is here in Russia. For me, the biggest difference, and this is one of my favorite things to tell Americans who are coming to Russia, haven't been here, is the idea of gulyat, which roughly we might translate to walk around.
Yes.
it's such a like cultural institution in Russia, where you would just say like, "Pogulyaем," like let's walk around, and that's an activity in itself. And there's no destination, right? In America, it's okay, how do I get from point A to point B? So let's go for a walk to this restaurant. Whereas in Russia, it's just, let's just walk around aimlessly for 4 hours.
Way of walking, you know?
Exactly.
Like you follow your feelings.
Exactly. So American students who study in Russia, we joke sometimes that you can't really translate gulyats because it means so much more than to just walk around.
Talking about also drinking, vodka. Vodka.
Oh, I hate vodka.
Me too. High five. I hate vodka.
Oh, it's poison.
But still, what about these, you know, stereotype about Russians constantly drinking vodka? When you arrived here, was it like, where are all these people drinking vodka? Was there something like that? Or you were like, oh yeah, sure, they drink vodka everywhere?
For me, I actually prefer Russian drinking culture than a lot of American drinking culture.
Why?
Because, well, first of all, you always do it with food. Right. With zakuski, right? You always, you know, maybe do a shot, but then you eat some pickles and some mushrooms and some sala. Woo. And I really love the toasting culture in Russia.
Yes.
Right, in the US we'll say cheers, like we did earlier. But in Russia, right, you can't just say za zdоровье. I mean, you can, but that's pretty lame, right? You have to give this, you have to stand up and give this beautiful speech about friendship and international cooperation, and you have to like tell a joke and then also quote Pushkin, and it's just like this whole
sing a little bit,
and then you always sing, you sing some sort of like some sort of bardskaya piesna, right, like some sort of bard or criminal song. Что все мы здесь сегодня собрались.
All over the world, people imagine Russians drinking vodka out of the bottle, like.
Right. No, because then you wouldn't be able to toast.
When we had these parties, like international parties, we have people from everywhere, like Americans, Italians, German people, and then finally, as you said, we normally drink vodka with lots of food.
Yeah.
If we're students and we don't have like a huge table of food, we drink it with juice.
Yeah.
Or with mors, like berry juice.
Oh yeah.
So we were like, we had vodka, bottles of vodka and juice. And then at a certain moment we were out of juice. And me and my friends, Russians, we were like, okay, we'll go down quickly, grab some juice. And then those American girls were like,
no.
And they started drinking vodka like that. And me and my Russian huge boys, friends, they were like, looking at them like, really?
Oh man, I shouldn't be talking about all of my drinking escapades in Russia. I don't drink that often, but when I lived in Ufa, I lived with a Tatar and Bashkir family, and it was amazing. I loved them so much. I've gone back and visited. But they took me to the dacha, which was phenomenal. Just like the coolest experience. Dacha culture is so wonderful in Russia. We don't really have that in the US. And they took me over to their friend's dacha because they said, we've gotten an American, we've got to show you off. We'll be super popular tonight. I was like, oh, okay. And one of these friends were, you know, maybe 5 of us sitting at a table outside the dacha. And of course you've got the whole table's covered in like vodka, but then also pickles and tomatoes and fresh fruit and vegetables. One of their friends said, oh, you know, you're an American. You can't do shots. You don't know how to do shots. And they warn us about this. Exactly. They, you know, on the study abroad program, they say, Russians will tell you you can't do shots. It's a challenge.
Don't believe them.
Don't believe them. Don't take the challenge. Of course, I was like, I have to now. For the honor of my country, I have to. The most patriotic I've ever been was that moment. I was, yes, I can. So. I don't remember a ton of what happened after that. I do remember when they brought out the samagon, the like moonshine.
Oh, moonshine.
But the whole time you've got toasts, right? I think I recited a Pushkin poem at one, you know, Pustoye vy, serdechny ty, right? Some like Pushkin poem at some point.
Obviously you like many things about Russia. But what are the things that you still don't like or you don't feel very, you know, comfortable about? I don't know, like about anything, everyday life or...
Is it terrible that instantly I thought Dill? Ukrop. Dill. Oh my god. So much dill. So much dill.
Just I read an article about it in English, like, if you're a foreigner going to Russia, just prepare that they put dill everywhere. And I was like, don't they put it everywhere in every country?
No, 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 no.
It's like salt, you know?
It is like salt here, absolutely. The way that like my family uses salt, Russians use dill. To the point where I was in St. Petersburg for research last week. I ordered a hamburger, and I think it was called like the Dядя Sam, like the Uncle Sam hamburger. And it came on a bun that was rye bread, like Russian black bread, with dill on it. I'm like, what the heck? This is a hamburger. It doesn't need dill. Dill on pizza? Why? Why? So that's my number one complaint. But you know, it's easy, in a place like Moscow, it's easy to avoid, right?
Talking about American stereotypes about Russia and your friends and your family, did you bring all of them here? I mean, just to show Moscow and around and everything?
Yeah, I've brought a few of them here.
So you've broken some of the stereotypes.
I have, already. Yeah, well, since coming to Moscow at the end of December, my brother came and visited in January and February, which is a good time to visit Russia. It's also a very cold time to visit Russia.
Yes.
But he didn't mind. He was, I think, amazed at how similar Moscow felt to a place like New York City, right? And just like this wonderful like craft cocktail culture and craft coffee and all of these different things to do, and just a phenomenal music scene, right? I'm a musician, so it's a great place to be. So he really loved it. He actually then tried to get a job teaching English in Moscow. That's how much he loved it.
I've heard some amazing experience, reviews about it.
Yeah.
Let's imagine that you are the movie director of an American movie about Russia. How will you show, I mean, after being in Russia and living in Russia, how will you show the gender models, the ideas? Because it's like, every time you watch an American movies, it's like if there's a girl, she'll be a tall, blonde spy and prostitute, and she'll drink vodka, and she'll be most probably a ballerina also.
Yeah, a spy and a ballerina. Her name's probably Svetlana.
Or Natasha.
Yeah, definitely Natasha, actually.
Come on, Natasha from Russia. So, and if it's a man, it will be a huge ugly.
Yeah, his name's not Boris, but Boris.
Right. Yes, and he'll have this terrible American accent. When you say bad words in Russian, blять.
Right.
Pizja. Or something like that. So how would you make an American movie about Russia?
Oh man.
And they will also wear, those fur coats.
Oh, always a shuba. Yeah.
Shuba.
Yeah.
And fur hat.
How would I make a movie about Russia? Oh, that's a good question. I mean, if I wanted to show what life in Moscow is really like, I would probably come to a place like this, and you would see, people wearing Levi's shirts and jeans and Converse, right? I guess somebody named Natasha still, that's constant. That's a continuous thing. Yeah, I mean, to me, Moscow today is this young, really vibrant community. Obviously, we'd be different if I were trying to show Chelyabinsk, for example, right?
That's for sure.
Which, I have very fond memories of my time in Chelyabinsk, but it's very different, right? It's not a huge cosmopolitan city like Moscow. So I would maybe show young people in Moscow. I would also, I think, want to talk to a bunch of babushki.
Yeah, I like it too.
Yeah, I think that I joke sometimes that my closest Russian friends are like old women.
I mean, yes, that's also my people. I love old people.
It's just like, you sit down and you're like, Tatiana Vladimirovna, could you tell me more about what it was like in the 1980s or something? And the Babushka culture is so...
Babushka culture?
Is so strong here, where it's just like...
Strong Babushka culture.
Oh, yeah. I joked with a friend once that, in Russia, everyone is a babushka's granddaughter or grandson. It doesn't matter if you've never met this babushka before. If they see you sitting on cement and you're a woman, oh, no. They'll come up to you and they'll say, nilzya, right? Get up. Your uterus will freeze and you won't be able to bear children. And you're just kind of like, what? but you do it. You absolutely, if a babushka tells you to stand up, it doesn't matter whose babushka it is, you stand up. You respect that because you're like, you have been through some stuff in your life, babushka. I will do whatever you want. The babushki who like are feisty and elbow you on the metro.
Oh yes, I recently had a weird situation with babushkas at the playground. I came and there were two babushkas sitting on the bench. You know how it is.
Oh yeah. That's the babushka version of gulyat.
Babushka style, yes, and they're sitting like we are sitting now, and they're like, and I went way past them and I smiled to them, not the thing that Russians normally do, but I do, so I smiled to them, and then I went to the swings. So I sat down on the swings and they're like, hey you lady, don't you know that's the playground for the children? And I was like, oh really? I thought, but you are, and they were like, we'll call for the main person in the playground.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, okay, go on. And then they're like, oh, she thinks with her ass. Okay.
Exactly. People ask me sometimes, oh, in Russia, aren't you afraid of the police? I'm like, I'm more afraid of the babushki, to be honest. Like, police,
hey, people, another stereotype has been born now.
Yeah.
Be afraid of babushkas.
Be afraid of, but also respect them. Yeah. They have every right to terrify you.
Where would you like to live in the next, I don't know, several years? Is it Russia, or you're coming back to the US, or?
Yeah, I mean, so for better or for worse, I'm heading back to the US in a couple months. I have to finish my dissertation, apparently.
Oh.
I could definitely see myself living in Moscow for a while. Moscow is my favorite city in the world.
Really?
Favorite city in the world. Russians will say, oh, I want to go to New York so badly. I'm like, no, it's better in Moscow.
Our cameraman will agree with you.
Yeah. It's a grass is greener on the other side thing, maybe. I know a few people who have emigrated permanently to Russia. I don't know if I could do that.
US?
Yeah, from the US. I don't know if I could do that, if I could live here forever, just because, you're far away from your family and your hometown friends. But yeah, I would love to come back and live in Moscow at some point. But probably the majority of my life will be spent somewhere in the US.
So, the main question, Mark Twain or Leo Tolstoy?
Mark Twain or Leo Tolstoy? Oh, Tolstoy. Yeah. For me, the question is Tolstoy or Dostoevsky.
Tolstoy or Tolstoy?
No. It's always Dostoevsky.
Yeah. I mean, you're a Dostoevsky girl.
I'm a Dostoevsky and like a Bulgakov girl.
Oh,
you can't beat Bulgakov.
I'm a Pasternak girl. Totally, yes. Hate him and love him. He's the only man on earth that can make me cry in like several seconds.
Really? See, when I read...
Not cry.
That's interesting. When I read Pasternak, I'm like, maybe I just don't understand this because it's in Russian, and then I'll read it in English translation.
Yes,
I'm like, nope, I still hate it. I still hate it.
Even hate. So the thing is, when I read Pasternak's poetry in English...
Oh, see, I've never read his poetry. No. So maybe that's the problem.
I mean, in Dr. Zhivago, the last... half of a book, not half of a book, but the last,
Right.
a part of a book is just the poetry of Dr. Zhivago himself.
Right.
So when I started, it's like I can't read. I started whipping. I discussed it many times with some foreigners, like English-speaking people, and they're like, "Oh, we love Pasternak, Dr. Zhivago, oh my god!" And then I've opened the same poetry in English. Mm-hmm. And they started crying from the fact that, no, they didn't read it.
Yeah.
Because it's like скрещение рук, скрещение ног, судьбы скрещение, and then it's like the crossing of legs.
Right, it sounds very clinical.
Oh,
yeah.
Come on.
But see, this question's going to get me into trouble because Mark Twain lived in my hometown and is actually buried there. So we read a lot of Mark Twain in high school. So maybe that's why I'm, right, what's the Russian word? Nadoyelos, like I've had enough of Mark Twain.
Maybe that's how I feel about it.
Although I also tried to read Anna Karenina in high school, and I had to stop because I didn't know who all the people were because the names kept changing. I was like, okay, I just met Alexander. Now who the hell is Sasha?
Sasha?
Like, who is this? Right?
That's the funny thing when I talk to people and when they meet me, they're like, what's your real name? Sasha, Natula, Natusa.
Yeah.
Natalie.
Tasha, right?
Yeah, Tusa, what?
Yeah. When I taught English in Chelyabinsk, if I couldn't remember a student's name, I would just go, Masha. Or just Asha.
Asha.
Right. Asha. What's the answer to this?
Okay, Gabby, thank you so much for
Thank you.
talking to us today. Thank you for watching. We'll break all of your stereotypes and give you more about babushkas. Beams of peace to you. Subscribe, like, share, do whatever you want. Live in peace. Love will win. Woohoo!